Hello, Oak Park. I'm City Manager Eric Tungate, and I am excited to announce that on May 15th of 2023, the Oak Park City Council passed another balanced budget. We have a lot to be proud of in our community, and I am eager to see how this budget will elevate Oak Park to the next level. This is my 11th budget with the city, and I think it's the best yet. But I will let you see that for yourself.
This is the annual budget presentation. So I'm going to talk briefly about the three-year budget, the current economic climate, and then of course the budget highlights. So a lot of people wonder why we do a three-year budget in the city of Oak Park, and we do it because it provides a model for us to plan for changes that we otherwise wouldn't be able to see. And so this includes the budget for 23-24, 24-25, and 25-26. So big picture. So we all know, we've heard about the revenue sharing situation. Since 2000, and I don't think people know to what degree the revenue sharing situation has affected our city, but to the tune now of about $27.5 million that we would have received, which is about $8 billion statewide. If you add up all the money that was being received prior to 2002 that we are no longer receiving. The good news is that our revenue sharing is increasing, albeit nominal. The other big part of this year is that federal COVID funding assistance is no longer a factor, because we're not that we received a bunch of it anyway, but we are not receiving any. We're not projected to receive any. And then wage and market rate of inflation, of course, continue to be difficult for increasing costs related to capital improvement projects and our ability to hire new officers and other new employees throughout the city's ranks. I do think, and I was mentioning this to the mayor earlier, I do think one of the bigger themes about our city is that our taxable value, while we're limited to 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less, and this year we know inflation is more than 5%, Oak Park's taxable value increase in 2022 was 10%. That was the highest in the county improvement. And this year, I believe, where's Sandra? I think this will be our second straight year of being the highest taxable value increase in the county as well at 8.41%. Right. Well, so why is that happening? I mean, first and foremost, we had a long way to go. And you'll see here in a moment in one of the other slides that our taxable value dropped substantially after the 2008 crash. But it also speaks volumes to the improvements, economic development projects, and uncapping, meaning new residents moving into our city. So should those two themes continue, that's a recipe for some long-term success. Okay, now this is just the chart. I just thought it was interesting to show back in 2014. So 2014 was, believe it or not, this is now years after the 2008 crash, and remember, government is a reactive entity. We saw our low point. So our taxable value was negative 0.47% in the 2014 budget. So all those years ago when I presented the budget to City Council, I had no good news to share on that front, that's for sure. So when you look at where we were, of course, and then where we are today, it's amazing. And then here's the bigger thing. So 1 mil of taxes for our city. We reached our bottom, as I mentioned a moment ago, in 2014. So you see in 2014, and our peak, by the way, was right before the crash in 2008, which was 1 mil was worth about $728,000 in revenue to the city. Our low point in 2014, 1 mil was worth about $432,000, and then we've come all the way back up now in the 2023 budget to about $649,000, which is a substantial improvement of over $200,000 per mil. So we're getting there. We're making progress. We're still not where we were after the 2008 crash. And then I think it's important to point out that the city's, now this is the city's millage rate. So this does not include other taxing entities. These are the entities that are directly related to the city. In 2015, it was 35.96 mils. And in this budget going forward, it's 31.91 mils. And so obviously you can see there's a dramatic change there. And if you're a taxpayer, in your favor. And the reason for that is because of Headley, the rollback, meaning the taxes will roll back each year, a percentage. And also because during this time, we have not issued any new debt. We do not have new taxes during this time. And we've also refinanced some of the existing debt that we had at much lower rates, which means your taxes are that much lower because to debt service those bonds that were issued, it requires less mills. Okay, so a couple of budget highlights, revenue and expenditures. So as I mentioned a moment ago, the 8.41% increase in taxable value. And what does this mean in real dollars? It's about $420,000 in new revenue to the city's general fund, which is substantial. That's money that did not exist prior to this. Expenditure-wise in the new budget, obviously new hires in public safety. So council members, you'll note in this year's budget, I have not put a limit to the number of officers. In last year's budget, I said we wanted to hire about 3 new officers. This year, I'm saying I'll hire as many as come our way because as we see, they're going out the door that fast. And I think it's also worth noting that overall general fund expenditures are approximately $200,000 less than they were in the current year, last year's budget. So that means we're not raising costs too much. We're keeping things in line. And then there's the other considerations. I talked about the millage rollback. I'm not recommending any fee increase for solid waste, and this is the 5th straight year that I've done that. We are recommending, I know some of you aren't going to like to hear this, but we are recommending a 6% combined water and sewer rate increase for the upcoming budget year. And I just want to harken back to the Plant Moran water study model that we did back in 2014, which said, hey, look, you're going to need to request between 6 and 8% increase for each of the last 3 years and then thereafter. I would also point out that in 2021, we did not raise water rates. We kept them stable, and we did that because obviously we were going through a global pandemic. This includes the Great Lakes Water Authority adjusting our city, Oak Park, in a one-time adjustment of 7.5%. So we're eating some of that increase because they said that our formula for our community in terms of wholesale water rates was out of whack. They're otherwise limited to no more than 4% per year. This was a one-time thing. And then, of course, no increase to the stormwater runoff utility rate. I don't see that this would need to increase. Stormwater runoff charges are based on your property lines, based on the size of your property and the impervious surface area of your property. So there will not be an increase there unless your property changes. Okay, so where do we compare in terms of water and sewer rates? Well, you see the orange, look at that, we matched the theme for the night. The orange graph in the middle there, we are about middle of the pack when you compare us to the communities around us. We're not the highest, of course, we're not the lowest, but, and that's based on the average use of about 7 units. And also, just one more thing, I think it also speaks to, all of this and the occurrences of issues related to non-payment of bills and other issues with water bills have gone down exponentially, and I think it's primarily because we've gone to the monthly bill setup, which has, in my opinion, been very successful. Okay, the general fund balance. So this is the money that we set aside each and every year for the unforeseen. And I got to tell you, it is one of the greatest things about this city, and that's people don't generally understand it, nor should they. But finance nerds like me understand it. And this is the money, 18 or so % of our fiscal year budget versus expenditures we've set aside so that if something bad happens, if there's another crisis of some kind, we are prepared to handle it. When I came in 2012, this says 2.6%, but I would argue it probably was about negative 2.6%. So we were not in a good way back in 2012. And we've maintained, right around 18 to 20% for the last several years, which really is, the best practices even though our policy is only to maintain about 10%. So we've almost more than doubled that policy requirement. I thought it was important to talk about the retirement systems because these have such a huge impact on the annual budget of a local unit of government. And I wanted to put 2016 because 2016 was when the retirement systems, I think, were at their lowest point in the last several years. And then, of course, in 2021, we know that markets were producing, 20% returns or so. And you can see the public safety system at that time was almost 70% funded. And I wanted to put 2022 because now we've had the crash from that and the reconciliation. So public safety is around 60%, and the general system is around 50%. The general system, we are going to be applying for some of the pension stabilization funds from the state. Okay, so here are the approvals required, and I'll be happy to take some questions here in a moment, but obviously the budget and the projections for the 2 out fiscal years, the millage rates associated, council members you'll see in your packet, and then the fee schedule. And before we move to the question and answer period here, on page 16 of the fee schedule, council members, if you could take a look at one of the changes that we're recommending to take effect immediately is the administrative fee that would be added on to tickets under the civil infraction section. It's page 16 of the fee schedule packet. And so, just to clarify, all of the other fees, we're asking for a July 1st start date, which is our typical, except for these, 4 or 5, I guess it's 5, administrative fees to be added on to tickets. And just to give you a quick overview, so when we write tickets on a code issue, let's say, and we get to the district court, we've spent, our code officers have spent, numerous hours out in the field researching, working with them, doing whatever they possibly could to bring them into compliance. And so we think there's a value to that administrative time, supplies, you name it. And so this is a recovery, and we've been able to substantiate these with actual average hours worked and so forth. This is a recovery of that administrative time. So when our prosecutor is in front of our district court judges, they can say, yeah, the owner's in compliance and we agree to dismiss, but Your Honor, we would also ask that we add on our administrative fee to recover some of that time that we've spent. And so that would be, I would request that if you approve this tonight, which I hope you do, that be approved immediately, and of course the rest of the changes in the fees take effect July 1st, which is the first of our fiscal year.
Well, Oak Park, I know that was quite a bit of information, but if you take only one thing away from my budget presentation this year, let it be that we have again passed a balanced budget rooted in fiscal responsibility. Oak Park, we have a lot to be excited about in the coming year, and I look forward to elevating our city together.